I'm Steve Clemons. I direct the American Strategy Program at the New America Foundation. I'm with my friend Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group, who has just written the New York Times best-selling book, The End of the Free Market, Who Wins the War Between States and Corporations. Ian, it's great to be with you today.
Steve, thanks for having me.
I know that you were recently on Jon Stewart, and this little clip we have here is not Jon Stewart in The Daily Show, but I'd like to have some fun with you.
Only because there's no studio audience.
I love this book because you, for the first time I think I've seen anywhere, really get in and explain what's happening in the global economy with state capitalism, and the fact is you give a very bleak assessment, I think, of the U.S. economy, how it's been managed, but you don't say that it's all done for us. And maybe you can kind of give us the quick version of this important book that I'm nonetheless sort of depressed by.
Well, I mean, you should be depressed right now because the free market is facing unprecedented challenges. The most successful experiment heretofore in history of the free market, putting together the Eurozone and a unified European economy, is under unprecedented stress. In the United States, people are unhappy with their government. The Tea Party is on the rise. In Japan, they're going through a revolution. They're clearly,
you say, and you actually go and say, if you go talk to your average Chinese, they're pretty pleased with their government.
They are. After 30 years of state-directed 10+% growth, and the Beijing Olympics and the Shanghai Expo going on right now, they're vastly more pleased with their government's performance than we are in just about any country in the West. But what we need to recognize is that we're now in an environment where some of the most important economies in the world, and most importantly the second largest economy in the world, fastest growing and most resilient after this great recession, is a country that fundamentally doesn't support free market principles. It's a state capitalist system where the state is the principal actor and judge in the economy, and where there's no rule of law. And that creates some incompatibilities with the West, and it's frankly the principal challenge, recognized or not, that the Americans and the West have in front of them today.
Then why do we keep playing ball with China the way we do?
Well, we do need China, and China does need us. I mean, this is not, when the Soviet Union was around, the right strategy was to undermine them, to contain them and destroy them. That's what we did. We did our damnedest to support democracy and nascent movements within these former Soviet republics and the Eastern Bloc, because when they fell apart, it was upside for us. This was zero-sum relationship.
And do you think that's what we're doing when manufacturing, the manufacturing base of the country is moving in such large swaths to China, that's playing that role? Or do you think that China and its form of illiberal market management will survive America's capitalist tendencies?
Well, there's no question that whatever the answer to that question is, what's happened in the last 18 months has extended the lease of life for the Chinese system for quite a while. And so ultimately, I think that there are some things about the Chinese system, both within China and globally, the environment, labor, demographics, scarce commodities, lack of efficiency, indigenous innovation problems, that may well make them unsustainable. But this is not a 5-year issue. And, we are thinking about the world today, and we're thinking about the challenges that are going to be confronting us, for the next election and the election after that. And for those purposes, we need to recognize that we're going to have a very robust, an incredibly robust Chinese state capital system, with a lot of countries around the world saying, it works pretty well.
Now, how do you look at Brazil, India, Russia? You made some comments earlier I found fascinating about the BRICS and why the BRICS really aren't the BRICS.
The BRICS aren't the BRICS. The BRICS are the BRICS only insofar as they are large economies in the emerging market world. Right. But, if you're an actual investor, and certainly if you're a policymaker, you should be looking at these countries as places that we can increasingly do more business, and places that are increasingly well aligned with us, and places where we can't.
Right.
And Russia and China are in one camp, and Brazil and India are in the other. And that's the way we actually need to be thinking. If you ask, folks in the Obama administration have asked me, what should the U.S. do to get the China relationship right? One of the first things I've said to them is, go to India. Obama hasn't actually been there yet.
Right.
After a year, over 1 billion people, and they're having some of the greatest problems in terms of local competition with the Chinese on cybersecurity, on border security, on intellectual property, all of the rest. that they're only going to be better disposed to the U.S. But because of Afghanistan and Pakistan, the U.S. has been kind of strategically hobbled from really improving their India relationship. We need to get this right.
Just the last question. Today, it just coincides with the release of the president's national security strategy, and one of the key points that I think the Obama team is trying to make is that we have to restore in the United States the sources of innovation and technology, education, and sort of recapture that driving edge at the margin of global change that America used to be. What do you think the best pathway to that is? And do you share that goal that President Obama has laid out?
Oh, I certainly share that goal, but unfortunately, I'm not sure Obama shares that goal. I mean, there was a lot in that speech at West Point. There's a lot in this statement. They talk about supporting democracy as well, not something we're going to be able to do very much of. I want to know, when the rubber hits the road, where are they really going to expend what is very scarce political capital right now? We need to focus on getting money to building long-term, sustainable, competitive infrastructure. Education, research and development, where the U.S. has only been spending less of late, smart grid, and all of the rest that ultimately will allow the United States to maintain competitive edge. What I've seen the last year has been healthcare, and that is a horrifying misallocation of political capital. Not a bad policy, ultimately, even an improvement, but not one we should have been focused on.
But it doesn't rewire the country.
No, we need the infrastructure, we need the financial reform, and we need the fiscal moderation. We need to actually start paying attention to the deficit. And those three things are really all they can afford to focus on. And this is an administration that has been focusing on an awful lot of things.
Well, folks, I highly recommend, as Jon Stewart does, The End of the Free Market, Who Wins the War Between States and Corporations. Ian, thanks for these few minutes, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.